NANI?
Psh, please. 40k is stupid. You honestly expect me to believe that there's a combat unit that has flamethrowers, that drives specialized vehicles, that uses shotguns and gas weapons? Please. Like something that stupid could ever exist IRL. Wait a minute. What? Aha! Noch eins! Hans, geht's die Flammenwerfer? Wir müssen diese Narren kochen. Jawohl, mein Herr Kommandant! What? Who are you people? What are you doing in my house? What is that? Brenne in heiligen Fürst des Imperators. No. No! Salutations Rangers, General Bradley 101, back again with something brand spanking new! Good Lord have mercy. Yes indeed, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with the first of many, the brand new series, History Hammer. That's where we take the beautiful world of history and the crazy beautiful world of Warhammer and put them together, bang! History Hammer! So, in History Hammer, we take a unit, faction, or whatever in the Emperor's name we want from 40k and relate it to its historical counterpart, seeing how what happened in history affected the 40k version and how Warhammer makes an homage to this particular whatever of history. In short, 40k has a lot of history in it, and I'm gonna show it to you whether you like it or not! Sorry, been spending a lot of time around the Black Templars. They're pretty evil. But so is the whole Imperium. So is 40k. Except for a few things. Anywho, in today's first inaugural episode of History Hammer, we take a look at the combat engineer of the Death Corps of Krieg and their IRL military counterpart, the combat engineers of, well, the military. We'll take a look at the combat engineers, then the Death Corps, and finally how the two relate to each other. Without any further ado, lights Flammenwerfer, grab your hammer, cause it's time to build shit while we kill shit. Hell yeah. So, what is a combat engineer? GoArmy.com, the official US Army website, defines it as such. As a combat engineer, you'll work quickly and skillfully to help soldiers navigate well on combat missions by constructing bridges, clearing barriers with explosives, and detecting and avoiding mines and other environmental hazards. You'll provide expertise and come up with quick and creative engineering solutions, constructing fighting positions, fixed and floating bridges, and obstacles as well as defensive positions. So, the name engineer is a little deceptive. They're engineers in the old school sense, where they learn math to make sure that they use the right amount of explosive to take out the door and not the whole goddamn building. They're a combination of brain and brawn, being one of the most mentally and physically demanding jobs in the military. You think math is hard? Try remembering Pythagoras' theorem while having a metric shitload of 7.62 aimed directly at your dome. Yeah, it sucks. It's often said that engineers support the army. This, in my opinion,
is incorrect.
Is much more accurate to say they lead the charge. Now, this just isn't my bias for combat engineers coming through, as one of the main tasks of combat engineers is mobility and counter-mobility. In simple English, you make sure that there's no holes to stop your guys, and the enemy will have so many holes, they'll confuse the battlefield with a goddamn strip club.
What did he say?
Man, that's out of pocket. Oh, good lord. Oh, crikey, it's funny though. The other jobs of combat engineers is demolitions. You are the master of making things go boom! You really do a lot of work with explosives, from breach fortifications to clearing obstacles, using them as additions for defensive fortifications. C4 is quite versatile, and before the Geneva Suggestions came around, anything with fire and chemicals was your job, including flamethrowers as well as gas bombs and grenades. You also have surveying. It's a job to map out and scout the land and correspond with logistics to make sure that the most optimal path can be taken, and make sure that whoever's going there can get there in one piece. Mining. If the army needs anything done in the ground, then that's where you come in, big fella. Then we have construction, bridges, building, arty positions, anything in general needs built, you're the man with the shovel and the will to do it. Mine and obstacle clearing comes next. Now this ties into mobility and counter mobility. You move stuff out of your way and put it in the way of the enemy. And finally, whatever the hell the military needs you to do, to be honest. You are considered the jack of all trades and master of every goddamn thing under the blessed yellow sun. You need water pump? Call the engineers. You need trees felled? Call the engineers. You need a 7-Eleven built because morale is dropping because it's 40 bloody degrees outside and your troops don't have any slushies? Give the engineers this apple and a bag of ice and they'll figure something out. Okay, all jokes aside, being a combat engineer, you're the one who clears the way. You make sure that all the fighting force has to do is fight. You could have the most elite, crack special ops trained super soldiers that you could ever want, but they're plumb bloody useless if you can't get to the enemy because there's a big ass river in the way. As I said before, they are combat engineers. They're given arms and armor and equipped to fight if the need arises. So not only do you have to do math while building a bridge, while being shot at, you also have to get the Wazak that's trying to kill you. Master of all. I stand by it. They also have an affinity for shotguns. As to why, I do not know. Well, if I had to guess, I'd say it's because they work up close and personal. And nothing says, don't bother me while I'm working, like a 12-gauge slug. Hell yeah. Oh yeah, you also need to know how to drive a tank.
Hold up. Wait a minute.
Okay, so it's based on a tank, but it's still cool as hell. To aid the engineer on his mission, they're given access to many specialized hybrid construction and combat vehicles, such as mine-clearing vehicles and this beautiful beast made out of necessity, taxpayer dollars, and sheer bloody awesomeness. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the M1150 Assault Breacher vehicle, or the Abrams Assault Breacher. Essentially, it's an Abrams tank, minus the main gun, and given mine-clearing equipment, and a giant spike or plow, or a dozer blade. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a combat engineering vehicle. It is designed to complete its construction/demolition mission while using its 50 cal Madus to defend itself and the engineering party. There aren't many perks to being an engineer, but this is more than enough. The M1150 is the latest generation of combat engineering vehicles to see the field of battle, being introduced in 2009 and proving its worth in the war zones of Afghanistan. Now, with that, let's take a look at the history of the combat engineer. The modern combat engineer, like all modern military doctrine, traces its roots back to World War II, where we see the first combat engineering vehicles, as well as the role of the combat engineer as a specialized class with specific skills incorporated into the military system. Although, like all combat, the combat engineer has been around since forever, from the Roman legionaries of antiquity who were all trained in construction, to the sappers of medieval Europe who brought down great bastions with flaming pigs, to the engineers of Victorian age who took the first steps into what would transform the engineers into the badasses we know today. Rivers have been around for forever, thus so have bridges, and the men to make them. The most successful armies in history have had great logistics, and engineers make it possible for logistics and the army as a whole to get where they need to go and to get there in one piece. It takes a special kind of man to build a bridge while repelling the enemy and then joining the charge to secure victory. It takes a combat engineer, the soldiers who make the way forward. Right, now into the grim dankness of the far future. The Death Corps of Krieg are an elite regiment of the Imperial Guard, the main land forces of the Imperium of Man, the main human faction of Warhammer 40k. And no, they're not the good guys. Well, not all of them at least. Salamander's best legion. Get wrecked. Click here to find out more about Hans and friends, but only after this video. I'm watching you. The Commissar is also watching you. He's not afraid to execute you. Anyway, the Krieg are based on World War I. They are known for their fanatical determination, dour personality, and mastery of siege warfare. And what is a siege without an engineer? Incomplete. That's what that is. While every regiment of the Guard has combat engineers, the Death Corps are the best that there are. Being given specialized training and equipment, the Death Corps of Krieg engineers are the epitome of combat engineers. They're armed with heavy carapace armor, explosives of all kinds, mines/mine clearing equipment, survey equipment, mining equipment, gas grenades, flame grenades, and flamethrowers, as well as heavy-duty shotguns, which can load carcass shot, which is a heavy armor-piercing slug round that can even threaten power armor. So basically, imagine a KS-23 on space crack. Yeah, that's cool. And finally, the iconic GASMASK and chem-proof uniform of the Death Corps of Krieg. As for special equipment worth mention, there are two in particular. Number 1, the Mole Launcher. The Mole Launcher is a burrowing missile launcher that fires a long-range, high-explosive missiles encased in a mining drill, allowing it to be guided by the engineers to the required destination before being remotely detonated. It is a favorite hit for counter-mining operations as well as underground breaching. Speaking of underground breaching, we then have number 2, the Hades Mining Drill. The Hades Mining Drill is a sub-terrain transport armed with a melter cutter to destroy rock and enemy armor alike, as well as diamantine-tipped mining drill blades, which are very effective against infantry. It is often used to breach through a particularly well-defended fortification. The melter cut is making short work of any heavy armor or heavy positions, and the spinning blades taking care of anything, or anyone unfortunate enough to be in front of it, before allowing its heavily armored and elite troopers to secure the position, reinforce it, and repel the incoming enemy counterattack. As for their roles, everything that our combat engineers do, the Death Corps do as well, but with the added danger of a daemon popping out of one of the 4 space hells coming straight for your anus. In Slaaneish's case, quite literally, Slaaneish's messed up. Don't let nobody tell you otherwise. Unlike the engineers though, they're often used as heavy assault breaching troops. While modern combat engineers often do join the assault into the breach, the Death Corps engineers are the ones leading it. A common tactic is as follows. The Death Corps will breach the fortification via a massive explosion. This leaves the enemy defenders stunned and disoriented. They then will launch gas grenades into the area surrounding the breach, adding another layer of hazard to the already compromised position. Flamer teams will then scour the breach with the cleansing holy fire of the Imperium via flamethrowers and incendiary grenades. Finally, the main force of engineers will assault the breach, shotguns ripping apart anyone who meets them before finishing off with bayonets and sharpened shovels. Yes, sharpened shovels are used as a melee weapon, both in World War I and in Krieg. Now, they're not the primary melee weapon, that would be the bayonet, obviously, but when sharpened, they do indeed function much like an axe. And you gotta carry it around anyway, so might as well make use of it. The Death Corps will then secure the position, reinforce the position, and then repel any enemy counterattacks, as well as preparing the breach for the arrival of the main push. So as when the main push gets there, they will be able to continue their advance unhindered. After this, they will usually be redeployed to other fronts, or continue to support the advance. They, as well as the Death Corps, really shined in the Siege of Vrax book series, which not only showed the brutal harsh reality of World War I, but also the indomitable spirit of the combat engineer as well as the soldier as a whole. I mean, look at them! They're just so goddamn cool! It's World War I in space, and it's World War I in combat engineers in space! God damn, I love combat engineers. Right. Now, let's wrap it all up, shall we? The Death Corps of Krieg combat engineers are the perfect realization of the combat engineer in media, with a grim, dark twist, giving them enough character to stand out, but still retaining enough reality that any 12 Bravo would pull a Leonardo DiCaprio meme when they first see them. Whether they be mining, construction, mine deploying, mine clearing, mobility and counter-mobility, the Death Corps will do all the same. The Death Corps also pays homage to the combat engineers of yesteryear. Being based on World War I, you get a clear idea of how hard and complex it was to build trench systems, and the dangers and setbacks that those brave men face, allowing us to connect to both past and present by taking a look at the hardships of the far future of the 42nd millennium. They encapsulate the two main virtues of a combat engineer, being cool as all hell, as well as having arguably the hardest job in the military, whether it be the Abrams assault breacher or the Hades mining drill, mine clearing or infantry clearing, building trenches or breaching them. The combat engineer and the Death Corps of Krieg combat engineer do it all with a quiet pride and a fully loaded shotgun, making the way for the military to achieve their goals, whether it be the hell of Frax or the hell of Afghanistan. The combat engineers of any universe deserve all the respect and gratitude that you can give them. Not to mention the drippage on these boys. Look at him. Good Lord, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. And that. God damn it, I love me some combat engineers. Woo, baby. That, ladies and gentlemen, has been our first ever episode of History Hammer. And before we go, fun fact for you. The word sapper, which is also another word for combat engineers, is derived from the French word sapeur, a derivation of the archaic French word for spade. The name also becomes connected with military engineers who would dig covered trenches that allowed them to approach the walls of a fort under siege. The English word sap, used in the military sense as early as 1591 by an English ambassador to the French court who was reporting on the siege of Rouen during the French Wars of Religion. 16th century military commanders discovered that they could dig trenches or tunnels to the walls of a fort and place a large explosive charge that would destroy the wall's fortifications. World War II combat engineers recruitment posters have them as heavy bronze and cast iron artillery pieces that were developed in Europe. Commanders gradually began using trenches to bring big guns forward within range of besieged fortifications without exposing them to direct fire from the in-place batteries on the fort. They were also used for infantry to get closer during charges during World War I. These trenches that were used were known as saps, and thus the men who dug them became known as sappers. Another theory is that tree sappers used to reinforce the wooden constructions of the engineers, so the chaps who made them were called, well, sappers. I personally think there's a combination of all of them above, resulting in one badass mamma jamma with a heavy-duty slug shotgun and a bayonet lug. So, as I said, that has been Combat Engineers, both in 40k and in IRL. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and just want to say thank you guys oh so very much for 1,000 subscribers. At the time of recording, we're at 989. It's been 6 months and we're already hitting 1,000. That's mental to me. Thank you all of you so much who watch this and support this, who subscribe to me, and the glory of the Ranger Trooper Corps. It is my own unique little creation, and one day I hope to make it a book series, and who knows, maybe even an animation thing on YouTube. But that's still a ways in the future. And as for now, you can trust me to bring you good old-fashioned history, lore, and every beautiful thing under the sun. But simply thank you for just watching this. Put a lot of time and effort into this, and to know that there are people who watch all of it and who wait for me to upload it's a warm feeling in my heart, which I promise I will do everything in my power to deserve. But that's enough of that. At the end of February, big month at the end of February, because the next video we will get is the 1,000 subscriber special. I know you thought this was. It's part of it, but the main one, as I said, will be a full comprehensive video on the history of the 18th Legione Astartes. My favorite legion, the Salamanders. Beware the sons of Vulcan. They bring fire and hugs. So we get that, and we're working on getting some Patreon and subscribe store and maybe even YouTube membership. Ooh, we're going up in the world, boyos. Anywho, that comes a little later, but as for now, all you gotta worry about is liking this video, commenting down below. But fun fact, if you didn't know any of that stuff about the definition of where the word Sapper come from, you owe me a subscribe. Let me know what other stuff I should cover in 40k that's history related on the next episode of History Hammer. But I have been General Bradley 101. You have been beautiful, awesome, and amazing people. Stay resolved out there, boys and gals, and I will catch y'all next time. Dismiss, Rangers. The Death Corps of Krieg also pays homage to the Combat Engineers. The Death Corps also pays I swear to God.